This would be an ideal time for the host to talk. Hi, this is Liam Scheff and the Liam Scheff Show. God, I hope this microphone is working. Let's just check with the manager of the station for a second. Hi, is the microphone working? I just had a little fun there. Welcome to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. I'm going to clear my throat, but I'm going to hit the mute button. That's how we do it in the major leagues. We're all pros here. I have my purple hat on. I'm going to take it off. It makes me too warm. I can't think, and I go too slowly. Okay, we're good to go. Turning Skype to don't bother me. Turning off this little thing that shows me images of myself as though I were 32. I'm not. I'm 44. We're going to talk about sex, dirty sex, sexy sex, dirty, talky sex, humpy, exciting sex, every kind of sex, in and out sex, on top sex, on the bottom sex. We're gonna talk about all kinds of sexy talk. We're gonna talk about all kinds of not with goats, all kinds of sexy talk. That's not this show. You're looking for Popeye's show. That's on. I'm kidding. He's my friend. We're going to talk about sex. You can, number one, support independent journalism and philosophizing like this by buying my book on Amazon.com. I have two books. I have a book coming next year as well. I worked so hard on Official Stories. It took so long to really consider what Official Stories 2, if it was going to be Official Stories 2, what it was going to be about, how it was going to look. I went through truly 5 significant incarnations of a sequel until it dawned on me that, you know, what was needed was time. Clearing throat. The pause is better than what just happened. Believe me, I was taking chocolate off the back of my... Anyway, Official Stories 2 is going to be about sex. It's going to be about God and religion, and it's going to be about gasoline. It's going to be about the world that we built with the tools that we've made, and really how we're about to destroy it. And I think that we're just sitting on that precipice. That's going to happen. I don't think there's really a way out of that. I have a movie coming out. It is almost out. It's not a breach. It's head first. It's coming out. It's headed toward the floor. We're going to catch it before it hits. It's called The Oil Alarm. You're all going to be able to see that this fall. I'm making a tour through Georgia, Chicago, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles, San Diego, maybe the Bay Area if there's anybody up there who will, you know, fund the ticket and the night at the whatever hotel that I can get some sleep. Probably can't sleep. I can't sleep in hotels. They're so noisy. That's another story that I'm going to tell right now. I can't sleep in hotels because they're noisy, and they're not noisy because they're stupid people who, you know, having sex, which would be fine. It's because I don't like to be in modern buildings anymore. I can't deal with modernity anymore. I camped essentially for 6 weeks this summer. I slept in a tent. I did everything else in the house, and, you know, including showering, but I got great sleep. I was in a tent. I could hear the katydids or cicadas, whatever you call them where you are. And, you know, I could fall asleep with that racket, but put me inside of a building anymore that has fans and blowers going and air conditioners in the floors and the walls, heaters in the floors, and all my ear hears is this ring. And it's not like a nature sound. It's not even a loud nature sound. It's just this too quickly cycling, annoying, mechanical, sucking, spinning, electromagnetic shit. And it hurts my ear, and I can hear it, and it wiggles a little bone in my ear, and I have this great, like, almost autistic level hearing. Don't write your letter. I know what I'm talking about. Don't write angry letters. I'm just saying that I have this heightened sense, like a spider sense, like I have great hearing, incredible hearing, that I've asked anybody who's been around me, like, what? I say, do you hear that noise? Like, what? And I go, shh. And they listen for 5 minutes, and they say, that? I say, yeah. Doesn't it sound like a truck? It's like there's a truck in the room. They think, no, I can't even hear it. They think, well, I wish I had your ear. I wish I had your eardrums. So I slept in a tent for 6 weeks and it felt so good. But anyway, I'm going to be going around and I have to take melatonin and other things to sleep in civilized buildings at this point. I just can't handle it anymore. I just want to be out in the wilderness. I want to be in a yurt or a cabin. I want to hear the sounds of the world. I don't want to hear machine sounds anymore when I'm sleeping. I just don't. I'm tired of it. I'm 44. I want to be back in the world of nature with a little separation between me, snakes, and alligators. And I will kill snakes and spiders. I don't care if they're good or bad. They're gone. Garter snakes I'll let live. I will let them live because they eat rats. You're listening to the William Scheff Show. This is going to be an adult show about sex. We're going to talk about sex. And I mean penises and vaginas and oral sex and sucking and coming and all that stuff. So just relax. If you're a kid, go away. If you're a teenager, make sure that, I don't know, that you think you can handle it. But beyond that, be an adult and put on your big girl panties and your big boy underoos because we're going to talk about sex. I'm going around, I'm giving this oil alarm presentation. Whoops. So, hold on. Don't burn down the house. I'm giving this oil alarm presentation. Nothing burned. I'm giving this oil alarm presentation, and I'm giving sneak previews of this movie that I wrote called The Oil Alarm. It's a great 15, 16-minute animated piece with a professional animator that was produced, that means funded, by a group called Heal the Planet, who liked what I was talking about when I said, look, everything is dependent on oil. Our food system is too spread out. It's too far away. The guy who runs it, Ken Fisher, said, hey, why don't we make an animated thing? He said it a couple of times. I said, you know, you have money, and you've said this a couple of times, so either shut up or put up. And he's like, no, I'm serious. And we did it. We've done it. The thing is animated, 90, probably 8%, working on the titles and crediting sequences now. I've shown a preview of it in a couple of places in and around, well, when I was down in Georgia, I think I showed it somewhere in the Chicago area, and then I'm going to be showing it in Las Vegas and Los Angeles. So that's happening. And if you want to see this out in LA, San Diego, or Points West, write me on Facebook, write me at my webpage. There's a contact page there. Tell me, you know, put up the few hundred bucks it takes to get me up there, put me in a hotel, and fly me back. If I sell anything else along the way, that's, you know, then I'm lucky. But yeah, don't have real money. Don't ask for real money. That's just not something I've ever really done. Just trying to get the message out in this video, seen and previewed. We're going to have a real premiere and a web premiere, and we're going to put it out in segments. We're going to have a web page for it. So it's all happening. I don't have to do it all alone. I've got a great group of people at Heal the Planet helping me with it. And now that I've said their name, they probably don't want to be involved anymore with the remaining content of the show because it's dirty and filthy. All right, let's start. A while ago, I mean a good while ago now, in a couple of years, I've always talked about sex. And before I talked about it openly, I talked about it shyly and subversively, you know, because one of the first stories I broke was the fact that there's really no such thing as an HIV test. It's modern brainwashing to make you scared of sex. And what happened in the gay community very specifically and for a variety of toxicological reasons that have to do with sex but have much more to do with antibiotics and AZT and benzene and lubricants. And that's a story that I wrote about in Chapter 6 of Official Stories. But the whole idea that, you know, somebody gets sick 20, 30 years after having sex is just made up. It's not there in the medical literature. It's not in the scientific data. It's nowhere. But it played on our fear of sex. So I was drawn in, and I didn't realize that what I was really interested in was this whole the range of human sexual interest and expression. I got involved as a journalist with something I felt was a fundamental inequality and untruth, that these tests, these damned HIV tests, HPV test, Hep C test, you know, they come up positive for all these other things. They're not really rated for one thing or another. Again, you can read that data-heavy stuff in Chapter 6 of my book, Official Stories. Back to the beginning of the show, I said you can support independent journalism and philosophizing by buying my book on Amazon.com, please do. No, I said .com. We're not at the sex part yet. Please do buy my book. Fisher Stories 2 will be out next year. It will be about sex. It will be about religion or God. It will be about the way that we build things or gasoline. And it will more or less tell how we're going to destroy this 20th century civilization that we built and what we have to look forward to, and how we better get really busy building community and building gardens, building food together. Oh, really? That's what the oil alarm is about. And it's very positive, by the way. You know, I don't come in with my normal doom and gloom and, you know, Soylent Green is people stuff. I just kept it light and positive and just sort of the facts, man. Just the facts, man. Because I wanted people to go, look, we can do this. We can get together in communities. This is not the sex talk yet. We can get together in communities and we can build gardens. We can plant fields. We can do so much with the resources that we already have. We can save seeds and we can raise fish and quail and guinea pigs and ducks, and we can build ponds and raise ducks, not just because they're cute, but to eat their eggs and to eat them. There'll be a lot of them. Hey, I've been a vegetarian vegan for 20-some years, but I will eat some duck. No, we're not at the sex. That's not code for anything. We're not at the sex part of the show yet. I know I promised sex. So I started talking about sex a long time ago. And when I was in high school, I was obsessed, like all boys, with sex. And I thought about it a lot. And I thought about it so much. I was so in love, frankly, with so many of the girls in my classes. And I just found them all, I found so many of them for distinct reasons. And I'm an artist, right? I draw, I paint, I sculpt. And I think that I just have a natural feeling for beauty. And if I see beauty, and I'm not talking about any particular shade, color, hue, or quality of beauty that comes on television. I mean human beauty in all of its strange and interesting forms. If I saw something and it just appealed to me, I was lost, you know, and I could convince myself that I was in love with. I remember I had a crush on a girl named Nicole, not Nicole, but Nicole, who was the meanest girl. She was so mean. And we would sit on this couch and she would like drive her fingernails into like parts of my hand until I winced and she laughed. But it was fine, you know. It was enjoyable. Because, you know, it's just she was a little goddess and I wanted her attention. And I noticed male beauty too, you know, which was confusing to me. You know, like, does that make me gay? I noticed male beauty. And when I was growing up and drawing, of course, I would only draw males. And I think the reason when I was growing up, I grew up in a pretty conservative culture, and if I drew females, I really felt like I was going to be criticized. You know, because more than that, I was afraid, I was probably afraid I would just have, you know, an erection all the time, like I'm drawing a female and I'm getting too excited. So I'd worked on the male figure, and it was very Greek and all this stuff, and I was, you know, good at drawing the male figure. And we never drew penises, so you just sort of drew like a curve. Like if you look at Led Zeppelin's Icarus, you know, when Led Zeppelin, the figure for them was the Icarus, and Icarus was the guy, the son of Daedalus, and Daedalus wanted to escape somewhere, I don't remember, and fly with his wax wings, and Icarus was his son, and they put on these wax wings, but Icarus flew too close to the sun, and the sun melted the wings, and he fell. And Led Zeppelin had this image in the 70s of Icarus falling, his head back, you know, his beautiful, strong male body and all this other stuff. But I think when we used to draw it, we wouldn't draw a penis. We'd draw like a curve, under like a Barbie doll curve. We were so afraid to be sexual, but all comic books were sexual. Like X-Men was totally sexual. Like Phoenix would come in and she had like a triple D bust that defied gravity and storm, and all of these female goddesses, what do you call them? Superheroes. They're the same as goddesses. They had these giant boobs and these wide hips and skinny waists. And of course, you just wanted to fuck their brains out. That's why we looked at the comics. And the men were very masculine and attractive, and I'm sure people wanted to fuck their brains out too, or be them. Isn't that what it is with men? You want to be them or screw them, and if you're a guy, you want to be them, and if you're... Well, anyway. So I would draw, and I was afraid of drawing women because I was afraid I would get too turned on. I would get in trouble for drawing women. So it was not until I really released myself to just be an artist. I'm like, fine, I'm an artist. And I'm talking about long after every other people thought of me as an artist. They're like, look, I'm going to draw women now. I'm going to draw women. I know I'm attracted to them. But I was so afraid it was like a terrible sin. I swear to God. I mean, not Yahweh, but I just, as the expression goes, I was afraid to draw women because it was like they were too beautiful. And to draw them naked was like creating pornography, and I certainly shouldn't do that. So I did what was acceptable. And I was just, in high school, I was just in love with all of these girls. And it was so easy to, and some of them that we really got along, we were really great friends, and we would spend time. And some of them I hated because they were horrible bitches, horrible, horrible, horrible people. And if they were really good looking, you'd hate them even more because you wanted to just screw them. You wanted to have sex with them, but you hated them. but the male passion, like the testosterone, was just like flooding you, and you're like, God, I hate them. Get out of my head. So anyway, so I thought I was very sexual, but I didn't allow myself to think that because sex was wrong when I was growing up. It was wrong to be sexual. I mean, it was just wrong to be sexual, period. End of story. All you're supposed to be is modest. All you're allowed to be is modest. Well, one day I guess I'll have a girlfriend, and maybe we'll hold hands when we go to the park. Of course, when I started dating, I was like a monster. I was like a sex-crazed fiend, and I fucked my girlfriend's brains out. You know, I was just so, and I mean everything. Like, I was so into oral sex, giving, not, I didn't make them do a thing. I'm like, no, just whatever. And I loved giving them orgasms. I was just insane about giving them orgasms. I was just that guy, you know, that rare male who was totally obsessed with making the girl like come and be happy, and it was great. I know that I just got a lot of fans for that, but it's true. And there are men who are like that. I know what I said. I'm experienced enough to know how women react to that, and believe me, I understand. It doesn't make anybody a great match. It just means it was true. I was just fascinated and totally into the female. You know, once we were adults, this world that you could enter sexually was so profound. But what happened was, I got sucked into the same fear system as the rest of you, as all of us do, which is, oh, I had this experience, and now, even though I've been waiting my whole life to have this experience, you own my genitals, and I own yours, and we'll be fine. I knew that wasn't the case. And the first girl, I say girl because she was my age, and I consider myself a boy at 23. I went out with a woman first. I went out with a 31-year-old when I was 22, and we had a good relationship. I really, really liked her very much. And we had good sex, and she had already had a kid, and she even had a C-section, and it didn't bother me. Nothing about her bothered me. And it was good, and we really got along. But then I traveled, and I met somebody else, and we started having sex, and the sex was really good. Like, I didn't realize just how good it was, but we were both like game, you know, we were both like natural with it. It wasn't kinky, it was just good, athletic fucking, like really good, up and down, in and out. Oh yeah, this is the sex part of the show. Fucking. And we, you know, she was not conservative, but she was limited, like she never, I think that if I don't know, she might have tried, like if we had been a little more steady with our relationship, maybe she would have tried bringing a girl, bringing a guy, whatever. We didn't get that far. We sort of blew apart within a year, even though we stayed together for several, and the relationship was crap because we didn't know each other well enough, and we didn't like each other well enough. And instead of knowing and liking each other, we fell in love with the desperate feeling of being young and in love, and clinging to each other in a world that's pretty cold. So once we felt like we had something, we just clung and held. I did it as much as she did it, and we both strayed a little bit. I strayed more. And then she felt really angry at me about that, so I stopped. And I didn't stray, and that means I had sex with somebody else. But I told her I wasn't monogamous. And then I went and I had sex with somebody else, and I felt kind of bad about it because I didn't enjoy it. And I told her, and she like fell apart and threatened all these things. And I said, oh, I guess I'm not going to do that again. I'll really try hard to be this monogamous thing that I said I wasn't, but I'm going to try. Well, guess what happened then? That's when I became a jealous prick. I know, right? When I tried to tell the truth, when I tried to tell the truth about what I was, which is not a very monogamous person, not very monogamous. I'm very loving. I keep friends forever and ever and ever. I keep friends for a long, 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 long time. And I'm not a slut. I won't just fuck. I won't have intercourse unless I'm pretty much in love. And I don't fall in love with just anybody. And I have gone quite literally, at the most, I think a couple of years of my adult life without having intercourse because I just didn't find anybody. I fooled around a little bit. I didn't have intercourse because I just didn't find anybody I wanted to have that kind of contact commitment with. And then, then I did. And so I suppose, excuse me, my voice is breaking. I think I'm going through puberty. I suppose I'm unusual in that way. But, I won't just have sex because I haven't had sex for a while. I've got to really, really be into the person. And it's got to be a strong connection, or I'm not going to have intercourse. I'll kiss, I'll hug, but I just, And maybe I'm different now. Maybe I don't know. We'll talk about that. This is the Liam Scheff Show. This is the sex part of the show. The rest of the show is the sex part of the show. If you want to read more about my slightly mythologized sex life, you can read The Truth About Love on Amazon Kindle. I know I said I'd have it in paperback, and boy was I wrong. I don't have time. I haven't had time to do the final proof correction to make it perfect for paperback. I'm working on it. I have a friend doing proofreading if she's not too busy doing all the things that she's doing. And when I get that proofread copy back, I will do all the minor corrections, and it will be out in paperback. It's a very funny little novel. I'm going to add a half of a chapter that I didn't get to add for the Kindle version, and I'll even update the Kindle version to make it a slightly fuller denouement. I don't think I rushed the ending, but it missed something, and then I figured out what it was, and I'm going to put it back. But it's a very fun sexual story about essentially me in my 30s. But it's fictionalized too, so it's not quite me. Anyway, that relationship in the 20s was a disaster. It finally ended, and we hadn't been sexual. We lived together. We hadn't been sexual really for a long time. Because I'm like a girl in the way that if I don't feel it, I'm not going to do it. I'm not like a guy in the sense that I'll do it anyway. And if I don't feel the emotional connection, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to. That makes me a very strange guy. I understand that, but I'm just not going to have sex unless I feel it. Maybe twice in my life, I kind of made myself, because it was kind of expected and we had gone far enough, and I regretted it. I regretted it both times, and I just felt like, and I don't care if a relationship works out or doesn't work out. I don't care if I'm in love delusionally or not delusionally, but I better have real love feelings there, or I don't want to have intercourse. I know I'm a very unusual guy. I understand that. Making out, I don't have to be in love. I have to be in like. And oral sex, that's somewhere in between, but it's a lot of fun. I want to talk about that in the second half of the show. I want to catch you up to where I am now. I went through my 30s. I had a long-term relationship with a person who was really an angel sent from the other world to intersect my life and raise my, whatever you want to call it, tonal vibration and open my heart 3 sizes. And that was my partner, Helen. Helen and I were intensely open with each other and incredibly open. And we weren't, and I've said this in the book, we weren't intensely sexual. We were very affectionate, but the attraction, I think, was never. It was look. It was otherworldly. It was just sometimes I would look at her and it was confusing because I felt like it was almost like we were twins more on the other side. I know that sounds weird, but that's what it was like sometimes. Like I knew her, and it's though I'd always known her, and I was never jealous, really, for a second. She had a couple other boyfriends. I had a couple other girlfriends. And the hardest part for us is that we knew that we could never replace each other, and everybody else came second. So anybody that we dated was going to be talked about, like in our house. We were just going to talk about everything that we were going through. And that must have made it a little bit difficult for people we dated sometimes, but that was life. This is the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio, where the truth is the frequency and the frequency is the truth. UCY or UCY, with Jules and April and Verstine and Truth or Talk and all the other great shows. And I got, Love On, Not Off. I got to get back on Levon's show. I'm hopefully going to be doing, Levon Morales, she's going to hopefully host me for something in San Diego. We're going to do a planting thing down there for the oil alarm. The oil alarm, just take a little break for this. The oil alarm is a 16-minute animated video, professionally animated, no slacker stuff here. I'm not putting together like PowerPoint. I mean, this is really nicely done, black and white and some color, about oil production, oil decline, where it comes from, what the car is in the United States, history, how the United States works, how it came about in the 20th century based totally on oil and the motor vehicle and the truck, and what we're facing as this world collides with, shall we call it reality, or I don't know, shall we call it decline, or shall we call it resource decline. That's what's happening. Our water and our oil is running low. Not out, but low. There's 7 billion of us on the face of the planet, and we're going to be fighting for this stuff. We better stop feeding cattle and alfalfa and almonds and pistachios. No, those are water hogs. We better stop feeding hogs and cows and pigs in factory farms. We better start raising quail and ducks and local chickens on our yards rather than in big factory farms. We better, if we're going to have cows, we better keep them for milk, and I would prefer these goats because they don't tear up the turf as badly. These are all of the things that we're talking about. The movie will give you a huge, like, PhD thesis in 15 minutes in easily accessible terms with nice, fluid animation done by Eric Rogerson, who's really a good animator and I think has become a friend and just a really nice guy who has also poured his heart and soul into the project. So I'm very excited about it, and there's a lot coming up with that. So that's the oil alarm. You're listening to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY and Truth Frequency Radio. We're talking about sex, my sexual history in life. I don't have too many sordid details, but enough. In the second half of the show, I want to talk about an idea that isn't very popular in the culture, even though it's true. Sex may be bad for you sometimes. It may bring you into relationships that don't suit you. You may go too far and regret it a little bit here and there. Who knows? But there's another aspect of sex. And it's this. Robert Scott Bell's writing me. Say hi to JR. Okay, that's my thing. He said he's in Dallas. Robert Scott Bell is in Dallas at a conference, and he said, blah, 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 blah. Anyway. Sorry. Yes, that's the joke. I wrote him on Skype. It's not a good joke, and I wrote it to him. Sex is good for you. Sex, and I don't just mean intercourse. Intercourse is good for you. But I mean this thing that is unfortunately called foreplay, which I frankly think is quite sufficient sometimes. I mean, why is it foreplay? It should take up most of the time that you're doing things. Kissing, touching, petting, rubbing, caressing, sucking, licking, swallowing, if you're into that sort of thing. Why is this secondary to the, rumpy pumpy, the old in and out? Why is it secondary to this thing that frankly hurts my back if I do too much of it? Pump, 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 pump. Human beings aren't machines. Well, if they are machines, they need to be warmed up, and they're not quite machines. And if they are, again, they're not latch and key. You have to go around and warm up all the different parts and pay attention to them and get involved and have fun with all the different areas and make sure the juices are flowing and make sure everybody's happy and make sure you're sharing and you're genuinely in the moment and it's not just conquest or getting it over with or doing your duty. Holy crap. There are people who actually think that sex is an obligation in a relationship, and that is nauseating. That is nauseating. Oh, man, we get married and you have to give me sex. No, they don't. Go masturbate. If somebody doesn't want to have sex, then don't ask them to have sex. Period. End of story. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. I don't care how Christian or fake Christian or Jewish or Muslim you are. Nobody owes anybody sex. Sex is a purely voluntary act. Purely voluntary. And I'm not saying you have to be like, yeah, let's do it. You might be like, yeah, okay, let's do it. But it's a voluntary act. Anybody who doesn't know that, anybody who is so crazily religious or whatever your psychosis is that you imagine that because you put a ring on somebody's finger that they have to blow you when you tell them to, fuck you. No, go fuck yourself. And literally, that's what masturbation is. Just get it out of your system. Nobody owes you sex, ever. Period. End of story. It's not even a no means no thing. It's just that nobody ever owes anybody sex. Now that said, people are much more willing to be sexual and to be not sensual, to be affectionate, to be touch-oriented. We're so willing to do this if people are just nice to us, if people are warm with us. You know, if they're not throwing all their voodoo and crap and hatred and anger and bile and control and psychosis at us. If you're willing to be open and affectionate among your friends and the people you care about and the people in your peer group, and you know, then you're going to get love and affection in return. If you're a managerial, micromanaging dickhead, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, you're going to get very little, and it's going to come with strings attached and resentment. But I didn't always know this. I suspected it, but I didn't always know this. I suspected it, and so I avoided boyfriend-girlfriend relationships through high school and college. It's not that I didn't have sex sometimes. It's that I did, but it was with, I was on vacation or somebody was visiting and we hooked up and it was fun and we stayed in touch. And that was very sweet. Or we met here and then we kissed, you know, and that sort of thing. Or how else did it happen? Or we would sometimes see each other. Even in college, I was seeing somebody, and I told myself it was wrong, but I didn't stop myself. She was seeing somebody, and I was seeing her. Why? Because I liked her. She was seeing somebody, but she liked me, and I liked her, so I saw her. And I at the time I thought, well, it's a bad idea. I really shouldn't be doing this. You know, I had all the fake moral conundrums of the culture, all the programmatic crap of the culture. But so what? I liked her, she liked me, and it was a really warm, sweet, very loving, generous relationship. You know, I don't even think we had intercourse. I know we made out. And I think with the other guy, she was probably more serious. But she probably she wasn't intensely happy with him, and she really liked me, as nutty as I was at 21. And, oh my God, I was really off the wall. You know, I mean, I hadn't streamlined much of my very divergent personality yet. I got into my 30s, and I was with Helen, and I had a couple of girlfriends, and I had two girlfriends who were important. One was very short-term, but she really helped me get over some of my fears about sex. Because my early life had been violent, because my parents were dickheads. So I was afraid that there would be violence when I was growing up in my sex life. And to some degree, in my first relationship, there was a lot of argumentation, and I really wanted to avoid that. So I was desperately afraid of having violence in my relationship. So I got into a relationship with a girl. Hold on, my roommate's coming. I swear to God, a roommate's coming. All right, hold on. Okay, radio roommate. Okay, we're good. I'm in a temporary rental because I'm on the road. So when I got into this relationship, I was in my early mid-30s, and the girl was had to be 12 years younger, which was pretty, you know, she was in her early mid-20s, and she was as Republican and weird as you could be. And I know that you won't believe me, dear radio listeners, that your friend Liam. So she was reading Ayn Rand, and she was reading who's that horse-faced Republican commentator, Ann Coulter. She had these books on her shelf. And so I told her some of the stuff that I'd done. I told, you know, some of the 9/11 stuff and some of the 8 stuff. She's like, oh yeah, that sounds like government crap. And so we had that in common, that we thought the government was crap. She was, I don't want to give too much away. She was Filipino, which I'd never gone out with anybody from those islands. And I've always enjoyed the idea of, don't get me wrong, but of getting around the world and dating. You know, you want to get around the world while you're dating. You want to you want to you want to feel you want to you want to have the experience of all these different cultures and what it's like. And again, I told her, I'm an artist. You want to feel like what you want to see the beauty of different faces and of different shapes and different forms. So that was part of it. But and she was very, very, and again, she was pretty flat, not totally, but pretty flat-chested, and I never really thought about it because she wore this whole bustier thing when she was walking around, so you wouldn't know. And then I saw her and like, wow, you're really beautiful, but in a very different way. And it didn't bother me, it didn't turn me off, and we were incredibly sexual. And we had such intense sex that I swear I remember looking at the clock, and it was somewhere between 9 and 10, and the next time I looked at the clock, it was somewhere between 2 and 3 in the morning. I swear, I'm not making that up, that happened. And it was good. And she and I got slightly aggressive, and and I said, I think we better have a safe word because we're pushing each other a lot. And so I don't remember the safe word except like, hey, stop it or something like that. It was a safe word. And one day she just reached up and she like slapped me like on the jaw, and I thought that didn't even hurt. Come on. And so she sort of pulled her arm back and she's like below me. We're having sex, and she, like, really good across the jaw. And my head, like, went to the side, and I looked back at her, and I looked at the room, and I promise you, I'm not exaggerating, the room, which was pretty dark, it went brighter. It was like somebody turned on one of those bulbs, those bulbs that lightens a little, and the room went, whoa, and everything was sort of covered in this yellow golden light. And I looked down at her, and I thought about my father. My father had been violent. My mother had been violent. And I looked at her, and I thought, I would never hurt you. I mean, I like you. I'm having sex with you. I really enjoy you. And I never was afraid again. But that's a very interesting story. And I don't think that you'll find many sex therapists who tell you that if you had violence, the best thing to do is to get into some rough play, which is that's what that was. But to have a safe word, you have to have a safe word. You have to respect each other's boundaries. But that's what happened. So I was never afraid again of ever being in a violent relationship like the one that I grew up in because I allowed myself essentially to have done to me the thing I was afraid of, which was to be hit during a. And again, she wasn't trying to hurt me. Well, a little, but not much, not too badly. And she never slapped me, she never slapped me. Or she might have, but not that hard. And that relationship, by the way, it didn't last that much longer. I mean, it was another month or a few weeks, and then it was just sort of, she was on her right-wing Republican advertising thing, and I was going to China, and that was that. I wish that we had stayed in a little better touch, but I think we had nothing in common. But I'm grateful to her. She helped me unburden this frightened part of my soul that was afraid of being just like my dad, or just like my mom. And I was never just like my dad. I was never just like my mom. But until you let yourself approach that threshold, and I mean approach it and step on it and carefully thread it and say, I'm going to see what that was that happened there, without hurting anybody, without doing it. I got the safe word. This is all totally consensual. I'm not acting out. You can slap me, and I can slap you here, and we have the safe word. And that's what happened. I've never really been slappy and sexy again. Although I'm pretty. Sex with me is pretty athletic, and I was a wrestler. So there's a lot of push and pull, but it's all in good fun. Anyway, this is Liam Scheff Show. No, we have no secrets here. So the next relationship after that was one of the most important ones, and that was with my girlfriend, Jessica. And I fictionalize her in the story. I won't tell you any more about her, but we had great sex, and we really loved each other. And this is while I was with Helen, too. So you're saying, what the fuck? And it was an interesting time, and that lasted for 6, 8, 9 months. And then she was, I was at the end of my 30s and she was at the end of her 20s, and she was too young for me, and I needed to let her go, essentially be her and travel. And I didn't know what to do. Like, do I now get you pregnant and provide a home and family for you? Is that even what you want? It's not what I think I'm right for. I don't think that that's my goal or my process. I don't think I'm supposed to be doing that. She was going to go travel around the world 10 times. She had barely begun to really live her life, but she was a fascinating and remains a fascinating person and a friend. But we had great, wonderful, warm sexual contact. That's what we were. It was great. And when she was gone, when we stopped going out, I was very, very kind of sad, and I retreated, and I stopped talking about this. I never really knew how non-monogamous I was, and it sounds so obvious to you out there listening, but the way that you can hide these things from yourself in a culture that prohibits non-monogamy, you're like, well, I won't do that. I won't. That was that because I loved her in that special way, but I could never do that again because I'd never meet anybody that I would want to date while I was dating somebody else. Oh, really? So then Helen and I were together for a few more years, and we were not intensely sexual, we were intensely affectionate, and every night we were just laying on the floor talking and petting each other's hair and talking and all this kind of stuff. But I think that we both felt a little lonely for something more. And I think that when we got into our relationship, we didn't get into it as boyfriend and girlfriend, but we became partners, life partners. We knew everything about each other. We were each other's best friend therapist, I've talked about this before, I say there are 5 or 6 varieties of relationships, and Helen and I were best friends. You can have a best friend, a friend, an acquaintance, a lover, or a business partner. And Helen and I were best friends. We weren't great lovers. It's not that we never had sex, but we weren't great lovers. It was just okay, and really, it was a little too sisterly, really, and we were just too the same. We were too identical in some ways, and it just that kind of inner identification of personality. There's almost something in a relationship that you need to be different enough. You need. And that can provoke fights sometimes and provoke all these other miscommunications. I don't know what it is. But we weren't different enough, I think. And our insides so much were the same, Helen and I. We were so much the same. It was astounding. I mean, we would, we'd be in a room and we'd be having the same thought. I can't tell you how many times I said something and she said, I was just going to say that to you. I mean, like 250 times. 250 times she said, I was just going to say that to you. And I said, I know I talk a little faster than you do, but I know. So when I say that sometimes I think we were twins born on the other side, that we came out here, Anyway. And then the great tragedy of my life happened, and she had an aneurysm. And I just wanted to die, and she was gone from this planet in that physical way. She's still here. She's always here. But she was, gone from my 9 to 5. She was gone from my world. I've told that story before. I don't want to drag you all down with this story or myself. But I kissed her goodbye. She got on the train. She went to yoga, and she had an aneurysm. And I was buying bananas at Trader Joe's, thinking about whether I should buy bananas and tofu, thinking about it. And that's when that happened. So I walked home with those, and the phone was beeping, and there was a cop. And, I saw it was a cop because we had, identification on digital whatever that told me it was the police. I called, like, shit, did somebody mispark? But I had a bad feeling. Yeah. So I had a couple of friends who saw me through that, but the only reason I didn't kill myself was because I imagined that Helen had gotten left, and it took me a while to do this because I was really close. I really almost died. I'm not kidding. I was really close to just slitting my wrists, and I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. I just wanted to be where she was. And ladies and gentlemen, that's love. And it will just take you places sometimes. You just want to go where the person you love is. And she was home to me. She was every bit of home that I'd ever had was in that one person. So she was gone, and I was tossed out into this cold, brutal world without a home and without the home that was her, that center. And I had to spend the next It's been 5 years in November. I had to spend the next 4 years, I think, reacquainting myself with these deeper parts of myself, which I did. And along the way, I encountered wonderful friends, my friend Robert, Scott Bell, my friend Joni Abbott of Homegrown Health, who really both saw me through it in their own way. Friends who aren't public figures, so I won't name them. My friend April Bowden of Truth or Talk really was one of the first people who actually reached in and said, man, I'm so sorry. So I have more friends now in my life than I've ever had. But I'm also less jealous. I'm less possessive. I think I've learned one lesson of love, which is you can't own people. And you can't put a ring on people and expect them to stay with you forever. I've learned that sex isn't the thing that makes you love people, but sex is good. And I've learned that we're not here to abide by make-believe rules that were invented by Roman Catholic, Roman imperial assholes stealing Jewish make-believe prophecy somewhere in the hundreds BC, to forward the agenda of an empire. And that's Christianity. It's just mythology. And if that turns you off, then expecto patronum, expelliarmus, whatever. It's mythology. It's not true. Take the lessons you want from it. Take the spiritual values that you want from it. That's fine. Take the spiritual stories that you want from it. It doesn't have to be true for it to be psychologically meaningful to you, but don't get hung up in the bullshit. And Helen and I both had that in common, that we were just very clear that we needed to reject this stuff that hadn't worked for her growing up Catholic, for me growing up in this mishmash of science, Protestantism, and Judaism. And then we had to find out who we really were. And when you're willing to take that journey, you're going to be astounded. You're going to be shocked. Who are you really? Who are you really as somebody who loves? You love. You fall in love maybe 10 times a year. You meet somebody, you go, what a wonderful person. How wonderful you are. How wonderful it is to tell them what a wonderful person you are. And if you're attracted, you're so attractive. It's wonderful, and you're attractive, and it would be great to do X, Y, and Z with you if you're free, and if you're not, and if we're not free, it's still great for you to know that you're an attractive, warm, glorious, sensual person. That your form and your mind and your heart, or some different parts of you, speak volumes, and they speak the secret language and the ancient language of togetherness and of peeling aside the veil and of letting two souls connect. Okay. Why are we so afraid? What are we so afraid of? And why have we built a society that lives inside of the fake romantic myth of lifelong subjugation of your own desires to a fear of being shamed for having all the feelings that you were told were normal when you were going to high school and in sex ed and in college, and suddenly are abnormal when you're 30 or 25 or 40 or 60 when you get married or remarried? Who are we kidding? We're not a very monogamous species, but we're clearly a loving and devoted species. And I think people mistake this question of non-monogamy for being non-devoted, because I'm still devoted to Helen. And I will always be devoted to her. And if she were here in a more physical way, she would remain my best friend, and now she'd have to share me with a number of other best friends that I've made. And you know what? She is happy that I have them. And I know that. Can't tell you how I know it, but I know it. So, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of in your relationship? That if you said, look, partner, you know that we have sex, you know that we like each other, you know that we love each other, but sometimes I also love other people. And it doesn't mean that I don't love you, and it doesn't mean that we don't share bills and responsibilities and kids and a car or whatever, but what's the big deal that I love other people sometimes? Now, once you get over that and you realize that it's actually better to have a wider net in case somebody dies, or is wounded or mortally injured, it's better to have a wider net of close people who you know you love. It's better to have 5 or 6 people who are really, really close in case something bad happens. Who aren't, you're not waiting like it's that bloody horrible English movie with Anthony Hopkins or Emma Thompson, where they wait their whole lives to not tell each other that they love each other. Oh, I just hate England. I hate all the English people. I don't hate English people individually, but I hate the Englishness of England in which they just, and I know this isn't most English people, but there's this Englishness that says, oh, I cannot, oh, it's improper for me to, that Puritan strain that came over here and infected this country. Oh, I can't tell you that I feel how I feel about you. I mean, it wouldn't be wrong. All right, so this very wonderful girl wrote me recently, and she said, oh, Liam, I followed your stuff. You're really interesting, and, it's so exciting to read your stuff. And can I tell you, you're really attractive. And I said, well, that picture's 5 years old. I'm 44, or 4 years old, whatever. I'm 44, and I appreciate the flattery, and you're really cute. And she said, oh, my God, I can't believe I told you that. I'm so ashamed. And I said, why are you ashamed? You told me that you find me appealing, which is perfectly normal. And you are appealing, I told you that, which is perfectly normal. And that, if you lived next door instead of in the middle of Europe or something, we'd visit and have tea and probably make out, which is perfectly normal. That the desire's there, which is perfectly normal. What's there to be? I don't even understand the concept of shame it's, hey, I kicked a dog, I feel ashamed. Okay, I get that. Hey, I lit something on fire and somebody got hurt and I feel ashamed. Yeah, you should feel ashamed because that was wrong. Hey, I told somebody I loved them and I feel ashamed? No, you should feel happy, calm, proud, connected, in a tribe, human, full, alive. That's how you should feel. That's how you do feel. And the shame that you feel is actually an inverted fear that the whole culture has puked down your face into your guts, that they're going to criticize you for being an open person. Well, guess what? God, just tell them to go fuck themselves. That's what masturbation is about. Hey, you got a right or left hand, use it. And if not, find a stuffed animal that's big enough. Here's what I'm saying. You don't have to feel ashamed for being human. And being human is feeling attracted and being turned on and expressing to the people in your group, your peers, your friends, that you love them, that you care about them. And it's not necessarily walking up to somebody and saying, hey, babe, you want to, suck this or do that. That's a little crude. That doesn't really have anything to do with knowing anybody. That's just being excited and turned on. I'm not saying that in a swingers party you couldn't do that. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with a swingers party if that's the kind of thing that you're into. What I'm saying is that when you really have a heart connection, and that heart connection is also a lower chakra connection, a groin connection, or a stomach connection, or wherever you're connecting, then admit it. Admit it. Oh my God, you care about me, I care about you. What's the worst? Oh no, now we have to break up with the people. No, you don't. You don't have to break up with anybody. You don't have to break up. You don't have to do anything. You just love somebody. You love somebody else. You love now 2 people. The same way that if you have 2 kids, you love 2 kids. The same way that if you have a dog and a DVD collection, that you love the dog and you love some of your DVDs. The same way that if you have 10 friends in high school and they're your best friends and you love them and you can't imagine being without them, you do. You love them. If you have 3 best friends, then you do. There's no limit to how much love. There's only a limit to how many hours you can put forward in a day to keep relationships nurtured. That's the limit. But your heart doesn't know a limit of being able to give and receive love. Your penis knows the limit of being able to give and receive love. I think I've reached that limit a couple of times, and I was very sore the next day. So, but the heart, the ability to actually care about people, isn't really limited. I don't know why we feel the need to tell ourselves that it's limited, because it's not. You can love and you can love and you can care and you can care and you can be open and you can have wonderful friendships, and they can last for a long time. And if they're sexual sometimes, guess what? Then they are. And good for you. Don't give anybody herpes and don't get anyone pregnant unless you plan to raise them tribally, be a part of the nurturing of and raising of those kids. If that comes to pass, and that can come to pass with sex. STDs are real. You'll know them when you get them because they'll hurt. You don't have to go to a doctor to get an STD test for an STD they tell you that you have that you don't know that you have. That's crap. That's made up. You'll know if you have an STD because generally it will hurt. If you have very, very bad, what is it called? The word sanitation, but of the self, cleanliness, whatever. I don't remember what the word is. Hygiene. Maybe you'll have some extra bacteria. So clean up your diet and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, real STDs show up on your genitals. And the HIV police and the hepatitis C police and the HPV vaccine police, you go read their literature, go figure out how good their tests are, and tell me what you think. This is Liam Scheff with Liam Scheff Show. We're about to run into the musical break. Stay tuned to all the great programming on UCY TV. If you enjoyed this, rather open and confessional hour of broadcast media, you can support the author of these thoughts. Well, that's the universe, but if you can support the conduit of these thoughts, that's me, Liam Scheff, by buying my book Official Stories on Amazon.com. It's in Kindle and paperback. You can buy The Truth About Love in Kindle version for a song. I think it's $1 or $2. Official Stories is $5.99. It's really worth it. It really is. It's an education in a short book. 10 topics, 11 chapters. It'll really make you think about all the stuff you were lied to about when you were growing up. Put a smile on your face. The next book, Official Stories 2, is out in the spring. The Oil Alarm is out within the next couple of months. More announcements on The Robert Scott Bell Show on UCY TV, on Truth Frequency Radio, on People's Internet Radio over in Ireland. I'm just waiting for the break. Here it comes. I don't want to talk over the music. Just imagine that there's music playing right now and you can't hear me. It's going to happen. It usually starts right now. Come on. Hey, how about those Bears? Huh? Is it football season? I don't follow anything. Bears. I told you. See you next time.